I need you to put your good ears on real quick. The book never said men shouldn't sleep with men. The book actually said men shouldn't sleep with boys. And see, that strangely changes the whole context of everything, because then that means that the good book is actually condemning the pedos and not the homosexuals. Now, real quick, look at the relationship between the church and the offenders. Gang, gang. They're the same people. Now, do you honestly think they would be able to stand on their stage preaching what they preaching and then continue to do what they doing behind the scenes if they kept the original text? No, that would make them a hypocrite. So they intentionally mistranslated it so that they could offend in peace. So that is one of the biggest projections in history, because if they point the finger at you and say, you're the problem, then they don't have to feel the shame of them actually being the problem, them actually being the sinners that they up there preaching about. Now, they like for us to think that there's a separation between church and state. But the thing about that is that there's never been a separation between church and state. This didn't start here. This started with kingship. So what they would do is they would go to the church looking for boys to mentor. And the priest is like, this is a good one. That's a good one. And the parents actually saw this as an honor, because if they fulfilled the mentorship, then they would be lords and ladies and peoples of the court. And so now their family goes from being destitute to actually having some rank in society. So they let their kids go off with the king. And again, they target 13, 14-year-old boys, and they would mentor them, all right, turning them every single way but loose. So every single one of your churches are corporations that work for the same corporation you work for, which is United States Inc. So it's no coincidence that there are tunnels underneath there, because they are the suppliers of the mentees. The church had access to the people. The priest had access to the kingship. They're that neutral point. So let's talk about triplicity real quick. When you get out of polarity consciousness, which tells you that only one thing can be true at a time, and you move into high heart consciousness, which is right here, it's your thymus, is what you have to go through before you reach Christ consciousness, which is collective consciousness. This is where compassion and empathy lies, but it's also where triplicity lies. This is where you get to see the big picture. And this is where you realize that more than one thing can exist as truth in one moment, because everything actually appears on a spectrum, not one or the other. So you have hot and you have cold. Polarity consciousness tells you it's either hot or it's cold. High heart consciousness tells you that hot and cold exist at opposite ends of the spectrum, but between hot and cold is actually warm. And between hot and warm is an infinite amount of possibilities. Between warm and cold is an infinite amount of possibilities. So it's not one or the other. It appears on a spectrum. So in all reality, there is no separation. Hot is cold, cold is hot. Cold is the absence of heat, but they still exist inside of each other. Strangely enough, that's also how gender exists. You are not masculine or feminine. You are both. So by conditioning people through polarity consciousness and telling them that they have to fit into the box of either being a boy or a girl or masculine or feminine, it confuses them, because none of us are one or the other. And divine union is not based off of vessel to vessel. Divine union is based off of soul to soul connection. So now so many people are not only struggling with their identity, because identity is what puts you in these boxes and keeps you contained. Now you're also struggling with your connection to spirit, because you're in an internal battle between what you're being told and what you actually feel. And where do you go when you're struggling with your connection to spirit? To the church. In addition, it also forces you into polarity consciousness, right and wrong, good and bad, which is taught by the church and enforced through the schools and society. Yeah. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk.